go. This late 3 o'clock hour, Grayson Grundhoefer, Sikkim365.com and 365 Sports, follows like a hawk recruiting, the transfer portal, and much more, and joins Craig and Paul. I'm David Smoak. Grayson, have you had any kind of feedback whatsoever on DeQuan Finn at Baylor University, the quarterback out of Toledo?
You know, not a ton quite yet. Now, remember, he's going to have his visit through tomorrow afternoon. So he will have been at Baylor for roughly 3 days, kind of like a normal official visit would be for a high school recruit as well. But yeah, nothing substantial yet to report on kind of anything other than, you know, the same that you would hear, the visit's going well, things like that. That's about it. But obviously some very intriguing news that came out today, which I'm sure we're going to talk about just literally like 30 minutes ago about Maalik Murphy. But I think right now it's important to remember that, you know, Baylor bringing DeQuan Finn on a visit first. He's the first quarterback to take an official visit to Baylor since the transfer portal opened. He's also the first offer that they put out at the quarterback position, and technically the only offer until, I believe, about 30 minutes ago. But yeah, this is a very interesting situation. And Finn, obviously a very, very good player, the MAC player of the year this past season. And it's been really, really good the last 3 years. Honestly, I know a lot of people just talk about this past year, but he's got a lot of reps behind him, a lot of experience behind him, which makes you, you know, really optimistic about what he could bring to the table at Baylor for his 1 year of eligibility. So you know Baylor's definitely looking at him and definitely making him a priority right now on this trip.
So if it comes down to it, Grayson, who would they rather have?
Yeah, you know, I think that is one of those questions that I think is hard to answer at this very moment, just because you got to remember Murphy entered the portal yesterday. I mean, this was a quick turnaround and process for him to decide where he was going to visit, to try to get visits in before the dead period on Monday. And he put down 3 of them. I believe it's Duke, Baylor, and then Oregon State's the third. So yeah, I think that it's still up in the air. I think as of right now, I would probably think that Finn is probably the fit, just because you would have, you know, him and Sora Robertson kind of stack these next 2 years. But on the flip side, guys, Maalik Murphy, I mean, a physical specimen, a guy who's been working with Steve Sarkisian for 2 years now, a guy who's 19 years old still at this very moment. He doesn't turn 20 till February. Just just thinking about his talent and thinking about what he could become, the ceiling is very, very high there. But I do think that you're obviously taking on some inherent risk. If you're going to bring in someone who's, you know, only really played, you know, a handful of meaningful snaps, 2 games this past year, is really the only, you know, substantial evidence that you have about, you know, who he is and what he is currently, even if you think the future is really, really bright for him.
Were you shocked to see that Baylor visit come across social media a few minutes ago, or were you kind of expecting that maybe they could be involved?
You know, I think the bigger shock for me was that Baylor got the official visit before the dead period. I kind of felt like they might bring in another quarterback later, kind of see what happens with DeQuan Finn, and then go from there once things reopen after the dead period and at the very beginning of January. So yeah, I was a little surprised to see them get another quarterback on a visit so quickly, but I do know the staff is working tirelessly to try to get guys that they want on campus these next couple days. So it's going to be, I mean, fast and heavy. I mean, they got one of their priority offensive linemen on campus today. I mean, there's just a lot of moving parts and a lot of time and effort, I think, being put into getting guys that they want on campus right before this initial dead period, to maybe, you know, add some commitments before things close up for a little bit.
You think it would be disappointing if they didn't come out with a quarterback this weekend and or at least 2 or 3 transfers?
Yeah, you know, I think that's probably where I'm at now. Because if you're getting 2 cracks at quarterback and, you know, both of them having taken at least one official visit before Baylor, I do believe that now you're in a situation where you should be able to pick which one you like more. I mean, you should be able to make that decision after tomorrow and hopefully land one of them, right? Because, you know, it's 2 sides there. You know, Baylor can want their top guy all they want, but then on the flip side, you know, does that player want to go ahead and make a decision quickly My hunch is that, both these guys are trying to take this process pretty quickly and find their next landing spot. And so I would guess that Baylor's probably going to figure out who their quarterback is or who's going to be competing with Sora Robertson for that starting quarterback spot by the end of this weekend. And then obviously, yes, I do think that they should land a couple commits over the weekend as well. It'd be pretty disappointing if they didn't.
Grayson, what do you think is the next domino to fall outside of quarterback in the transfer portal?
Yeah, a rather interesting one that I think is maybe kind of a little bit of an obvious one, but I don't know if y'all caught this, but UNLV transfer safety Cameron Jenkins entered the portal this week, and he's on an official visit to Baylor this weekend. And, of course, he's the twin brother of Caden Jenkins. And Caden posted something on his Instagram earlier this week with his brother in it, and it just kind of seems like that could be something that is in the works to have both Jenkins brothers on campus at the same time, which would be rather interesting. Cameron had 32 tackles at UNLV this past year. He plays safety, which is a position that Baylor needs to address in the transfer portal. It almost makes too much sense. So I do think that could be maybe the quickest domino to happen, but I do think that there's some other guys out there. Baylor's done a really nice job, I think, in this early part of the transfer portal, getting guys that they want on campus. And now we'll see if they're able to close the deal and see if they're able to, add some of these guys, to a commitment list before the dead period begins.
Baylor's got their O-line coach. I was planning on asking you about that, but then I remembered that there was a tweet I saw last night from one Alex Foster, longtime Baylor commit, that let it be known he would be visiting Austin this weekend, and Texas has long been a threat there. I know that previously you said you wouldn't be too worried about it unless he scheduled a visit. Well, he's scheduling a visit the weekend before National Signing Day. So what are your thoughts on Alex Foster and this engagement from UT?
Yeah, this is a huge turn, right? Because I think the more that we kind of talk about, Alex, and the more that, we got past that initial wave of Texas interest, we started to see he took a visit to Baylor, got really excited, was all in with Baylor, came to another game before the end of the year, was all in with Baylor. And now, just yesterday, I was literally exchanging messages with him, and he said he wasn't sure if he was going to sign even, and sign meaning sign in December even. And so, we talked about that a little bit, and he said he's going to take, obviously, this official visit to Texas. But it is interesting. It seems like he is kind of torn right now on whether he signs early and maybe sticks with Baylor in the long run, or gets to know Texas a little bit more, maybe drags out his recruitment a little bit longer into February, which obviously would not be ideal for Baylor, just because they've spent so much time into this relationship. And Alex is a really talented player and a guy who is actually, he and Kylan Reed are my top prospects in this class rankings wise. And so to lose a guy like that, especially in the trenches this late in the process, would be very tough. Now, if you want to take an optimistic look or just kind of think about it in a way that's maybe positive for Baylor, is that if he does decide to flip to Texas, that would be another spot for Baylor to potentially use in the transfer portal. But again, I don't think that reward is worth losing one of the most talented players in your recruiting class.
Grayson Grundhoefer, 365 Sports. Of the two that are on campus right now, Robertson and Martinez, who's now on scholarship, which of those two fits what Jake Spavital wants to do, no matter who else might join the fray?
For me, I really think that it's still Sora Robertson in that instance. And I think that the thing about him is that he's been in that air raid scheme. He obviously learned a lot from Mike Leach during his time at Mississippi State. And so I actually think he's a really good fit for this team. And that's why I don't think, even if a quarterback comes in, that he should be discounted at all. I think it's going to be an open competition. He's going to get an opportunity to go out there and compete for the job. But I do think that Sawyer is a guy who's a really good fit, and he's got that dual threat ability with his size, his strength, his speed, and I think that fits really well with everything that Jake Spavital wants. And honestly, I think we got to see it a little bit last year, but his deep balls down the sideline, those throws, which are going to be very important to spread teams vertically, in this offense were really, really impressive. So I'm curious to see him continue to make that leap and continue to take that jump. But yeah, I think Sawyer is right now the better fit for Jake Spavital's offense.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Grayson will be tied up with all those text calls, et cetera, when it comes to Finn, to Maalik Murphy with official visit coming up tomorrow, and then also with a lot of others. And normally, let's be honest,